BNEWS Special. I'm Phil Gallagher, along with my guest today, John Tuccinardi. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Welcome, Phil.
John is a longtime member of the Burlington Rotary, basically one of the premier philanthropic organizations in Burlington. Involved in everything, but flies under the radar a little bit.
Yes, we do.
You're a three-time president?
Two-time.
Two-time president, two-time Paul Harris Fellow, which we'll
Yes.
talk about,
Yep.
and two-time Paul Harris.
Two-time Paul Harris Award winner and a one-time Paul Harris Fellow.
Fellow, okay,
Yes.
That's an international award versus the
Yeah,
Paul
local.
Harris is a local.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about Rotary itself.
Sure.
They have a pretty good catchphrase. Tell us about that.
Basically, it's service above self. That's what we believe in, and there's a quick four-way test that we have. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Is it beneficial to all concerned? And that's basically our motto.
Now, what is the origin of the organization itself? I believe it started in early 1900.
Yes, it was started by a person named Paul Harris, and it started as a business organization, basically. And the Rotary wheel is because I believe their first meeting, they had 4 members, and they would rotate to different businesses to have meetings until it finally, I think you told me it was 1910.
1910,
That
right.
it was incorporated, and it just sprung from a local Chicago business group, and now it's worldwide. You have in 215 countries. You have well over a million, almost 2 million members. You know, there's over 3,000 or 4,000 clubs worldwide. So it's not just a local thing. It's an international.
So what's the organization like? You meet on a regular basis, right? What are the requirements to be a Rotarian?
Well, for me, they made me fog the mirror, and I was in. You know? That's about as far as I could go. You know?
You were breathing.
I was breathing, but no, it's generally in Burlington. You have anybody that really wants to help out and do community service and do service above self. Whether you're a small business owner, we have small businesses in town. Their proprietorship, their owners are members of the club. We've got a couple outside of the town of Burlington as well. And then you have a Leahy Clinic type business that is a member of the club as well. So it doesn't matter, you know, how many people you employ, or if you employ, or if you're an employee, or if you're retired. We basically serve the community from school-age kids, from cradle to grave. We do a lot of work with the high school. We do a lot.
Hold on to that one. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, and you know, we do a lot of work with the veterans, with the Council of Aging. So we're involved in quite a bit in the town.
So there's 2 levels, though. There's service, but then there's also fundraising.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the service things that you're involved in. And let's start with the Interact Club.
Okay. The Interact Club is basically a Rotary club at the Burlington High School level. So we meet during the school year right here in the cafeteria. We meet every Tuesday night from 6:30 to about 8 o'clock, and we do service projects. The members, we just finished up 2 beautiful programs. One, we did a holiday party just before Christmas, and we had it right here in the cafeteria. We invited the Echo Enrichment Program in Burlington here with some of their members. Some of the Special Olympics team members came, and the high school kids put on basically a music type festival. We had pizza for the members, and you know, they had we played Christmas carols. We did a sing-along. They had a couple of the Interact members, the president Anthony Salive this year, He's a member of the band. We had like 5-piece orchestra there. It was outstanding. It was the first one, and we're going to be doing it every year.
Now, did they do a fundraiser as well? Did I read that?
We're going to be doing a fundraiser, and I'm going to give them a shameless plug if I can.
That's what we're here for,
I'm
John.
good at that.
That's
Phil.
what we're here
But
for.
we're going to be doing one at the Chateau, and it's going to be, and this is for the Interact Club, which goes to scholarships for these kids that go on to, further their education, whether it's in trade school or college or what have you. But it's going to be at, it's Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024, in a couple of weeks. It's going to be basically from noontime on at the Chateau here in Burlington. And the way it works is that you just, I'll leave a copy of this somewhere.
We'll put it on the bulletin.
Okay, and basically you just let them know at the, when you order either lunch, dinner, takeout, you let them know that this is for the fundraising event from the Interact Club, and they'll give us 20% of the proceeds
20%,
for
that's
that
pretty
day.
generous.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing.
Now, do you have a candy drive going on coming up, or is that over?
We've been doing that as well. It's ongoing online. You can go online to the Burlington Rotary website, and you can order chocolates. We're going to be doing it again for Easter time, in the spring. We did it for Christmas. That you can order chocolates online, have them delivered, and we make a certain percentage of that as well.
Now, the bulk of this goes to, the bulk of your fundraising goes to scholarship or other areas of the town? People helping people, for instance, you're a donor there as well?
The one thing that, the main attraction for me for joining Rotary was that absolutely nobody gets paid. Okay, there is not $1 that's spent on anything.
No administrative costs.
No administrative costs, not like some of the other fundraising things that you do, and nobody gets paid. Every dollar goes back into the community. So if you give us $1, we give it right back to where we see fit.
Now, what is the origin of the Interact Club? I mean, this has been going on for quite a while at this point.
Yeah, it's been, I'll tell you, Roger Bell and Kevin McKelvey were two of the ones that got it approved here in I want to say it was 2002 that we got certified through Rotary International as an Interact Club. And the idea was just to promote, people think of Rotarians now as older people, retired people, which I'm getting there, but when I started 20 years ago, I wasn't that.
Right. You're not giving up.
Yeah.
You're still fogging the mirror.
Still fogging the mirror. And, we are looking to obviously do this all the way down the level. We even have small different ideas for the grade school, that scholarship for kids during school years in grade school. So
now, tell us about the pumpkin patch. You don't run that, but you are a component of that.
Yeah, we donate like a day that we man the cash register and the sales and everything else, and we do it it's every October, obviously, and we do it once a year, that type of thing.
And the Thanksgiving Day, you do a Thanksgiving dinner?
Well,
or is that the food drive?
That's the food drive. We did at one time, we never really did a Thanksgiving dinner. What we did was we collected food, turkeys, and all sorts of different food drive that we do now. It's done pretty much at the American Legion Hall, and we collect Thanksgiving Day foods, and then it's distributed with the turkeys through people helping people at the church there in, at the split there at Bedford and Lexington Street.
Now, how did COVID impact you?
It was devastating. It really was. I mean, you couldn't meet, you couldn't get together for anything, just like any organization. A lot of people were worried, held on to their funds, in terms of donating, because nobody knew what was going to happen.
Some people weren't working.
And a lot of people weren't working, so it really had a devastating effect that we're still trying to dig out from under.
Now, one of your special project is the Special Olympics. Tell
Yes.
us about that.
Yeah, I started that basically the first year when I came into the club. It was 2003, and one of the members, Lloyd Rosenberg, was running it through with the Rotary and the Burlington Rec department. And he asked me if I'd ever played ball before, and to make a long story short, I got involved, and I've just been with it for 20 years on. They've done more for me than I could ever possibly do for them. I mean, they've made me get back on the field and on the court. Lost about 65 pounds. You got to chase that ball, and so you can't put a price on what they've done for me.
And that's principally now focused on a basketball team?
Yes, again, COVID had a lot to do with that, because, you couldn't, we weren't doing the baseball or the softball outside. And, it was unfortunate. We started, one of our members at the YMCA in Woburn is Donnie Botts. He's the managing partner. And he suggested one year that, if we want to do it, to play basketball one night a week, and even swimming. We even did some swimming there too the first year, and it was like a separate night from the Burlington Recreation Department, so the athletes could do both. They could do the Burlington Rec and at the YMCA, and the reason being is like the big thing. I love softball more than anything, but if you only had it about 8 weeks and it rained on that one night, you lost it. And then a lot of times it would rain 2 or 3 times on that one night out of the 10-week period, So basketball.
New England weather.
Yeah, exactly. So basketball, even if it rains or snows, we're still indoors, and we can do it year round.
Right.
So.
And I understand you're the defending champions this year. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. There's some. We're going to have to defend it. We have an upcoming game in Weston coming up on Sunday, January 21st, and I think we did a home and home last year, and we won a home game and they won a home game, so I think this is going to be the tiebreaker.
Okay, absolutely.
So
how many kids have you got involved? And this is for adults too, right?
Yes, I mean, I think our youngest may be 20, and it goes up to, a couple of the athletes are in their 40s, and we have room for 15, and that's what we generally have on our roster that they allow us at the YMCA. And they're so generous with their time and effort, and it's just been a really, really wonderful experience doing this in the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Now let's talk about scholarships. You give a regular scholarship or regular scholarships, and you're also doing the Interact scholarships. So.
Yeah, the Interact, basically what we've done over the past years, depending on how much fundraising we do, it's anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000 that we give to Scholarship Night in the town of Burlington. A lot of them go to the Interact students, president. They have their own board. They make their own decisions on what they want to do for fundraising and, charity donations. So we give a fair amount, and this fundraiser will help go towards the scholarship.
And you have a selection process for the
We have a selection process. We
applications.
we have 3 people, 3 of the advisors, myself, Susan Stewart, Rebecca Scott, and Al Fay was on that selection committee. And then, in the past we've had Beverly Vidoli also oversees it too. So we do have, we take applications from the kids at the high school. They will put everything in. We take, I think it's before April 15th or right around that date. Then we have a couple of weeks to make the decisions, and then we announce it at Scholarship Night at the high school.
Well, you mentioned Al, and a good day like this couldn't go by without talking about Al. You had a long-term relationship with Al. Yes,
Al and I became fast friends I was looking back the other night, and I know it goes back to at least 2016. I think he was in the Rotary Club when I was first president in 2008. I think that's the year he came in, and we just hit it off right away. I mean, I think his famous line was, "It's always to give better than to receive, and the more you give, the more you receive."
Sure.
So that's what I'll remember Al always, you know, and he lived by that creed.
He did.
Yeah.
And what was his primary focus within the club?
Well, he was on the board for many years, along with every other board that he was on in town. But as a member, he helped me on. He signed up for Interact first, and then I dragged him off to a Special Olympics practice, and I said, "Al, this is like a drug. It's going to be addictive. You know, nobody knows about it. Like you said, it flies under the radar." And after the first practice, he was hooked, and that was years ago. And you know, and the one tribute I remember at his funeral, if you remember, his daughter Lynn mentioned that his happiest day of the week was Thursday night after practice.
Yeah, well, he told me that similar, except for the ice cream rides. He said
that. You know, he used to take all the athletes in July or August, and we'd go from, we'd meet up at Mida Park, the parking lot across the street there, and we'd go from there to Bedford Farms. We'd have 10, 11 athletes on the truck, and unfortunately, we used to take one of either someone from here at BCAT, and
fortunately, unfortunately,
it was a terror. Well, it was a terror ride. You know, Al would drive that thing at 70 miles an hour, and it was like worse than a roller coaster. I'd be terrified, but the kids, they thought it was heaven.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
So,
he said that was one of his great joys.
it was a great joy.
We are doing the staff here is doing a tribute to Al, and
Good.
a lot of that will feature Al and his fire truck.
Yeah.
So tell us about Paul Harris Fellow.
Yeah.
And how did that arrive for you, and what did it mean internationally?
Well, Paul Harris, the award we give, it's the Paul Harris Award, is basically an award for club service, you know, and you get nominated, or you can actually nominate someone to do it, and you know, you can even purchase a Paul Harris for a family member or whatever. Traditionally in our club, as president, you know, after your year was over,
year of service,
you'd get a Paul Harris. So I have 2 of those. But the most surprising, the best thing I've ever gotten in my life was the Paul Harris Fellow that I was nominated for by our Special Olympics families and athletes, and they went to one of the coaches who was a Rotarian, Peter Majane, and they went, I don't even know how the process is, but I got that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, you're in pretty exalted company.
Yeah, I think they were telling me Jimmy Carter is, one of my favorites was, as a kid, was James Lovell, an astronaut, and Jonas Salk,
sure.
Because that's the big thing about Rotary. They're known for is trying to cure polio. You know, that's their big international goal.
Yeah, I was at a meeting down in Medford several years ago, and there were new outbreaks.
Exactly.
And they were talking about rejuvenating that whole program.
Yeah.
That stuff never goes away, apparently.
It never goes away because, I mean, some of these poorer countries, you know, one, they don't trust the vaccines because you would hear stories of someone getting vaccinated, and some of the elders in where they lived would cut off the person's arm for being vaccinated, you know. So it's just...
they cut off the funding in some countries.
Absolutely.
It's disappeared. So
yeah, COVID has really killed everything, you know, a lot of this stuff on the funding, the fundraisers that we used to do. And we used to call them not only fund raises, but fundraisers.
Well,
you know.
How about Boxing Night? That was a
Fight Night was the best.
Night. Yeah, Boxing Night.
And, you know, I got to thank Jen here so many times over, and her crew here. These guys are the best, Tad and you know, Robert and Chris. They've all, anything we ask for, they come through. And, what we used to do is we would put on a boxing night, Friday night at the fights, and usually it was at the Billerica Elks, because we could fit about 350 people there. And
full all the time.
Full all the time, and it was a lot of fun, but basically it was like throwing a wedding and having a boxing ring in the middle of the wedding. And that's what it was like,
right.
So.
Well, that was your major fundraiser during that period of time.
Many
right?
years, Paul Swanfeld and the Swanfeld family at Linco, they're huge supporters of that. Paul brought it back in his year when he was president. And Paul, I got to say, the Swanfeld family, what they've done for Special Olympics over the years is second to nobody. There's so many people, you hate to name names because I'm going to forget plenty, but.
Is that on the way back? Any thought of bringing that back as a fundraiser?
I've had a lot of contacts. See, the biggest thing was one, COVID, and two, Arthur Ramallo, who we got the boxes from the West End Gym in Lowell, and that was the movie that was the gym that was featured in the movie The Fighter, with Wahlberg and Melissa Leo and the other person I can't remember, Christian Bale.
Yeah, we're talking about the actors, but who was the fighter?
I can't remember his name,
We'll have one of the
not
one
Mickey
of the
Ward. He was there.
Mickey Ward.
Yeah,
that's who it was. Mickey Ward.
Yeah, so
one of the greatest greatest fights
absolutely.
I ever saw.
And they came out of the West End Gym in Lowell, and what we used to do was, the BCAT people here, the crew, Robert was talking about it. We would go to the West End Gym in Lowell before the fights, and it was just a giant old mill building, which had like a floor or a room, a couple of rooms this size, pull chain toilet, no heat. You go up the fire escape on the outside to get in there.
But a trip back in your youth.
It was just, and I was a big Muhammad Ali fan, Cassius Clay, when I was growing up. And they had just a history of all the different fights and everything else. It was amazing. And, Arthur really took those athletes or those kids, men and women, and he said they're either going to be on one side of the bars in jail or the other. And he took a lot of them, that were, disadvantaged and were troubled youth, and trained them to box and everything else.
Gave him some discipline.
Yeah, gave him some discipline, and unfortunately he died a few years back, So, but there's
no success there?
There is one now that she's reached out to me. She worked with me for years on this too, that we're thinking of bringing it back. I hope we can, but it is a lot of work. It is a lot of time. And
everything's work.
Oh my God! It's
give me an example. What was your time element when you were the president?
For fight night?
For the whole year.
Oh, for the whole year. I mean, I would probably think I spent about 20 hours a week back then doing it. Fight night was a 6-month proposition, because you'd have to get the food, you get the caterers, you have to get the gym, the thing lined up at the Billerica Elks. Then you have to deal with the boxing commission, and the boxes, the doctors, the trainers, and everything else. And it was just,
you got to have the commission on site.
You have to have the commission, because
judges approved.
Those were judges approved. The referees approved, because they were all sanctioned fights. Goes towards the Lowell Gold Gloves, and you
had to have a sanctioned doctor.
And then you'd have the weigh-in that night. So God forbid, you had 16 fights scheduled. Some nights you end up with 8, because a lot of them didn't make weight, or their hair was too long. It was this craziest thing, but you dealt with what you had.
You had to have Billerica fire services on hand as
Billerica Fire and Police.
Yeah.
So
fight night.
Police more than fire.
Police more than fire. Okay. Another great one for the Rotary was the golf tournaments.
Yes.
Okay, what's up with that? Is that returning?
We hope so. Andy Weiner and the Weiner family, who
Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts. Andy, unfortunately, the family sold most of their. I think Andy just closed the last one in at Christmas time, they're in the mall, so they've sold off.
I just walked by that today. I couldn't believe it. It was up there for 20 years, over 20 years.
Andy was a long-time Rotarian, and not from Burlington. He lives in Billerica, one of my good friends. Huge supporter of Special Olympics, above and beyond, what he did for the club. Mm-hmm. He came out this year. He bought the team new uniforms, or new T-shirts for the athletes, and they can't talk about people that fly under the radar. Mm-hmm. He's in a transitioning role for his career, and we hope to get Andy back in some type of capacity, because I love doing the golf tournament with Andy. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. So
we can look forward to that coming back, definitely.
Definitely.
Great. Now, how about comedy night?
Comedy night, we had our first one a couple of years ago. We just talked about it today. We're looking about putting it together sometime, maybe in the spring, late spring, just before people go on vacation. Our next fundraiser, believe it or not, is, if I can read it to you, sure, Phil, is a charcuterie event that we're putting together on Saturday, February 10th at 2 o'clock here at the Grandview Farms. Mm-hmm. So if you want, and that's the Saturday before the Super Bowl, mm-hmm, so there's going to be a class.
Oh, we can get that on the bulletin board as well.
Yeah, we can get it on the bulletin board. You go to, or just Google up Burlington Rotary, mm-hmm, and you'll come to our page, and it'll be on there.
I'm pleased to have finally found out how to pronounce that.
What's that?
Charcuterie.
You should see how I spelled it.
It never appeared on the restaurant menu until several years ago. And I said, what the heck is this?
No. I'm a city kid. There was just no.
So we've only got a minute and a half or so left.
Yeah.
Give me a recruitment pitch. And how people can join the Rotary, and how they can
Al's
put
motto,
service above self.
Yeah, it's service above self. And Al said it best. I mean, it hit me when even after I've been in there 10 years, you get what you put into it and then some. Mm-hmm. It is better to give than to receive. And the more you give, the more you receive. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's changed my life for the best. I mean, with my kids, they were always involved in Rotary. They saw, the different aspects of how people live, who needs what. Mm-hmm. It just made my kids' lives a lot better, and my life a lot better. Where, Phil, was I gonna meet people like you at BCAT? Rotary, all these people that are in Rotary that own their own businesses. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Lori Becker and past President Beverly,
Bob
Buckley. Yeah. Where are you going to meet people like that?
Roger Bell,
and and I'm going to leave plenty of people out. Orla Baker, that now owns Burlington Family Dentist. She's our so-called dentist of choice.
Who took over from
Gary Feldman.
Dr.
Yeah,
Feldman.
and you have younger people like Stephanie Jello, who used to run Flatbread. Mm-hmm. She used to be a big supporter. You got Anna Cowan, Rebecca Scott, that helps me, young woman that's vice president of Eagle Bank. Susan Stewart. There's so many, John, and even past people that helped me with Interact or helped. I helped them. Janet Sullivan Fitzgerald was huge in this, Sure. And
then all the old timers: Kevin McKelvey, Dick Kelly, Tom Flaherty,
Kevin Carnell, who flies under the radar. He does Special
everywhere.
Olympics, and he does Interact with me. So it's just the best pitch is that you'll never regret a minute of what you put into this facility.
And is there an application process?
You can just go online if you want. They can call me. Mm-hmm. If you want, I'll give you my phone number now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, 978-604-1591. 978-604-1591, and I'll get you where you need to go.
Great. John, thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our guest is John Tuccinardi, Burlington Rotary. Thank you for joining us.